David Harbour, Chief Jim Hopper on Stranger Things. I want to go back to the SAG Awards and one of the great acceptance speeches of recent times. How much planning went into that speech, and did you expect the kind of reaction that you got from it?
I didn't expect it at all. I mean, first of all, I didn't expect us to win, like, at all. So, but I did prepare a speech because I have very mixed feelings about award shows. I mean, I think it's kind of silly to pit us against each other. I mean, I think that, certainly I can't do what other people can do. And, it's kind of crazy what they do. But I thought it was a platform where I wanted to say something a little bit broader about art and about culture than just like thank you and thanking my agents and stuff like that. And I knew that if I got up there and I didn't have anything, whatever my intentions would be, I would say something stupid. And so I worked on it for about a week and I thought a lot about it. And for me, it was really about, I'm very proud of Stranger Things and I'm very proud of a couple of the very subtle things that we do in the show. In terms of, I feel like we embrace just kind of real people, and in a sci-fi genre, there are people that aren't that capable in a certain way. They have flaws and they have problems, and I want to see more of that in my sci-fi, in my comic book, in my sort of characters that I admire. I don't want to sit back in awe of people. I want to be able to identify with them and then watch them go on a heroic journey. So my speech was really about, that form of like, I consider it sort of a narcissism in the business that I want to kind of eliminate more and more so we can identify more with our characters and shows. And so it was very much about that. And then, when I got up there, like, it's so terrifying. Like, you just can't believe your life. Like, we're walking up the aisle and Denzel Washington is there, like, giving you a high five. And then you get up on stage and, like, Meryl Streep is applauding for you and, like, trying to rise to her feet, like, halfway through the speech. And I just got so scared. I started, like, shaking. I mean, the paper was shaking because I just couldn't believe that Meryl Streep was, like, applauding me. So, but, I had something very specific to say and I was pleased the way it went. And, I'm a theater guy. So it was a big room and I started to get very big but I did not expect the response to be what it was. I mean, and especially afterwards, people just so kind of jazzed about it and it going kind of viral there for a minute. And I think part of that was, the passion that I had for this and the big speech. And then part of it was also the great Winona memes that came out of that in terms of, like, all the facial expressions here. And I kind of love that because you have, me being impassioned and being very much who I was and her being very much who she is, this quirky, like, very expressive actress. And it kind of embodied the whole show, which is like, we have all this passion, all this intensity, and we also have a lot of silliness too. And so it was all kind of great. It all kind of worked out.
Yeah, I wanted to ask what your response was to the Winona Ryder response to your speech as it was happening, but
yeah, I thought it was really charming, and I actually thought it sort of, like, helped the speech in a certain way because the speech was very earnest and very intense. And so to have her go through all this with us and sort of be the everyman, like, kind of confused about what I was saying and whether or not, she was on board, and then kind of getting on board, like, the whole journey was quite fascinating. And I love the little, there was, like, some little memes that came out of it with, like, this pizza that was, like, flying into, like, her mouth. Yeah. And I just thought it was really, I thought it was really charming. I love her. I mean, I think she's so interesting and unique, and she's such an expressive human being that I thought it was hilarious and great, as much as everybody else did.
Now, going back to the beginning, when you first got cast on Stranger Things, you actually mentioned in your last interview with Gold Derby that, the Duff brothers were familiar with your work from another show, and that's what got you the part. So I'm wondering, what show was that, and what was it in that role that they thought would make you right for Jim Hopper?
Yeah, I was very curious about that because, I've done a lot of stuff, but I've never really been, kind of seen very broadly. And so I had done this show called Manhattan, where I was a recurring, and it was a show that Tommy Schlamme created. And it was about guys building the atom bomb in in Los Alamos in the early 40s, and so it was about these scientists, and I played this guy Reed Akeley, who was this scientist who he's kind of the villain. I was recurring on it, and he's kind of the guy who has all this money and power, and in the end you think he's going to be able to solve their bomb problem, and he sort of pretends like he does, and then at the end of the show you realize that he has no idea what's going on, and he has kind of a breakdown, like he really lied about a lot of things. And I don't know what specifically it was about that part, but I remember asking them on set, being like, how did you guys know me? And they were like, Manhattan. And so they had known some other work of mine too, but they said that was really what secured them. And I think, there was a kind of vulnerability to that character, even though he had a strength to him. There was a kind of vulnerability and kind of a messed up quality to him, sort of as he unravels. Maybe that was it, but I don't know specifically, but I know that was the role that got them really interested.
And you certainly have, over the course of your career, you've certainly played your share of villains and heavies and things like that. And I was wondering, when you first got the script for Stranger Things, what was it about Jim that spoke to you, that made you say, yes, I want this part?
I mean, it was one of the best pilots I'd ever read. And he reminded me so much of those 80s leading men that I had grown up with. Guys like Nick Nolte and Harrison Ford and Gene Hackman, and these really iconic roles from the 70s where these guys were, they were messed up and they were struggling, but they also had this real grit to them. And this real kind of like, shut down, almost manly quality. I remember like when I was growing up, my whole family's from Houston. And I remember like being young, being about 5 years old, and my grandmother, I got stung by a bee or something, and I cried, and she was like, she kind of, she didn't hit me, but she kind of was like, boys, don't cry. Don't cry. And it's very sort of unpopular nowadays in terms of like, people are they like to feel their feelings, and we like to be expressive of those things. But there's something about that time that I admire, and that I kind of like these situations where, you just have people where men don't cry, men don't break down, they get things done, they get solved. And I saw that in Jim, where he, even though he has this horrible tragedy, and there are moments in the piece where I do break down, but I wanted to make it very specific, where he's, he deals with it by drug use and by, kind of sleeping around. He doesn't understand himself as well as a lot of characters on TV. A lot of characters are very self-aware. They kind of understand how they feel. And one of the things I really liked about Jim was that he doesn't know how he feels. I mean, and he deals with things through developing a shtick of like sarcasm, kind of getting through the day and kind of treating people a certain way. And then we start to see his heart kind of open up as he goes through the piece, and we start to see him come to some sort of self-understanding. But I love when characters have lack of self-awareness, because you as an actor know psychologically, like, he's mean to children at the beginning of the piece, and like nobody's mean to children, and he doesn't even understand why he can't stand being around children. I mean, and psychologically, you of course know, because he lost his daughter, but I think if you'd asked him, he would just say, I just hate kids. And I think those things are so wonderful when a character is not self-aware, and then they grow to some sort of self-awareness and they kind of open up. So that was what I really, really loved about him, and really found unique in this particular time in our culture.
Yeah, Harper, he kind of becomes our hero over the season, but when we first meet him, like he's being mean to children and that kind of thing. So how do you keep like viewers, still rooting for him early on, or do you kind of trust that everybody's binging it anyway? So
I mean, one of the kind of liberating things, and also sort of choosing me because I have played a lot of villains, like one of the liberating things is because I knew that he was going to have such a heroic arc. I kind of wanted to highlight the things that were horrible about him in the beginning. And one of the satisfying things I get when people watch it on Twitter and stuff, when they message me, is like 2 episodes in, or like 1.5 episodes in, they're like, what's the deal with this Hopper guy? I hate him. Like, screw this guy. Why does everybody like this guy? And then by episode 4, they come out with like, if Hopper dies, I'm suing Netflix. Like, they just love him, because once he starts to go on that journey, you get behind him. But part of my process with this whole thing was like, let's really make that journey real, and let's make him hard to like in the beginning. Because one of the things I think, one of the traps that people fall into when they create leading characters is they make them so likable right from the beginning. And I think you don't have to like someone, you have to be interested in someone. You have to pay attention to them, but you don't have to like them. And I think that's one of the satisfying things, is you start to realize that people are more complex once you get to know them. And I think and you get to see who they really are inside when they deal with crisis. And so it's really more fun to like have your leading character be not likable and then have them go on a journey where they are more like, and I think we had more of a palette for that earlier on. Like, you know, we had characters like Gene Hackman in The French Connection, who is at the beginning of that story. I mean, he's tough, but he's kind of a jerk. I mean, he beats up people. He has this weird sexual thing where he's handcuffed to a bed, and his partner has to come unhandcuff him in the beginning of the movie. And you know, I like guys like that who are a bit more messed up, and then you see them do something heroic, and it's just more fun because you don't know that they're capable of that heroism. You think that they might not be capable of it, and that's sort of the drama of it all.
Is there a specific moment for you in the season where that transition between anti-hero and hero happens? Is there a specific moment that you clued in on?
Absolutely. And in fact, what I love about it, and what I think is so sophisticated about the writing, is that it doesn't come from a noble impulse. Like the transition that he makes is when they find the body. I mean, he does start looking for him more and more when he gets freaked out in the shed. He organizes a search party. He senses that something's weird. But then what happens is they find the body, and he has a conversation with this guy where he's watching the news, and they talk about how the coroner, it wasn't the right coroner who came in. They brought somebody in from state. And then they talk about this guy who was brought in from state, and like that their state is all controlling it. It should be a local event. And people start lying to him. And the only thing that really activates him is his own pride. The fact that people are lying to him. So he doesn't have a genuine impulse to even save a child. He doesn't have nobleness in him, which I loved about him. It's like it starts with this thing of like, why are you messing with me? Like, why are you lying? Like, and that's the activator. And then as he starts to realize that there's this whole conspiracy, that like lifts him up into like, I can actually save something. I can actually redeem something out of this. But I love that the activator, it really comes in episode 4, like after we find the body and he's there and he decides to go to that bar with that O'Bannon character and start to mess with him and start to say like, yeah, that quarry's state run, right, man? And he's like, yeah, it's state run. And he's like, no, you're lying. Why would you lie to me about that? And that's the activator where the guy like, you know, takes off and he goes out back and punches him. He's like, what are you lying about? Like, what's going on here? What's the real deal? And so that sort of search for the truth that comes out of pride, as opposed to like I really want to know the truth. It's more like, you're lying to me? Nobody lies to me. And that's the activator. Like, I love that.
You and Winona Ryder are the top billed actors on the show, and back at the Golden Globes, you guys campaigned in the leading categories. Now for the Emmys, you've both gone supporting. I'm not sure if this is a decision by you or Netflix, but are you able to speak to it?
I think, you know, I mean, I think there's a little bit of politics behind that in terms of like, I think it's a bit tactical. There are so many great actors and actresses in those leading characters, and I feel like because it is such an ensemble show, I don't know that we get to do as much as those characters in the other shows. Like, you know, in something like House of Cards, even though it is ensemble, it clearly is Kevin Spacey's show, and so in this, it really follows 3 stories. I mean, you follow the kids, you follow the teens, and you follow the adults, being me, Winona, and Cara. And so I think that we felt that there just wasn't enough screen time. Oh, hello, I'm back.
Okay.
Hey, I'm back. Thank you, Time Warner Cable. I think that we felt that there wasn't quite enough screen time to justify the leading category. So, we'll try, because it is such an ensemble show. And also, you're right, we were sort of the top billed actors, but then as the show developed and as it came out, it's very clear that like all the characters are so iconic, and even all the performances are so terrific and iconic that we were like, we really are an ensemble show and we really should be in supporting.
You are nominated at the Emmys for supporting actor. Do you know what episode you want to submit?
Is it a specific episode?
Yeah, you have to choose your like one episode that you feel is your best showcase, and then Emmy voters have the chance to watch that if they want to watch episodes before voting.
I guess I should think about that then. I think that I really do love episode 8 for Hopper. I think that you really get to see the onion peel back and you get to see me go through a lot of stuff. But I also like the middle of the show. I mean, I like, episode, I like 3 to 5 too. Like, I like when he discovers the body. I like when he cuts open the body. I like when he goes on the journey in 4. And then I like the opening kind of the lab stuff in 5 when he realizes that Joyce was right. So I don't know, that'll be a hard decision. I mean, I'll probably just go with 8 because it really is the emotional climax of him. And there's a lot of really good stuff in that. So I guess I would say 8. I guess I would say 8 because it has the most impact. It has the most emotional impact. But you don't get to see him punch anyone, which is a disappointment. But that's
well, then what's the fun of that?
Exactly.
Throughout your career, you've really, made a habit of going back and forth between film and TV and the theater and doing really complicated stuff, doing, Edward Albee and doing, Shakespeare. And is there one medium that you're most drawn to, or do you actually like the variety of being able to go back and forth?
For a long time, I would have said theater, and I still do. As an actor, I feel like it's the freest medium because film and TV ultimately is a director's medium. They control the focus, they control the frame, they control where you look. Whereas on stage, you're there the whole time, and the audience so you can reveal things that the director may not choose to highlight in a film, but you yourself, if you're sitting back and tapping something with your hand, you can reveal something that the audience might see in a play that the director might not choose to highlight. So in a way, you have more control. But I will say that I had become a little bit cynical about my place in film and TV for the last couple of years pre-Stranger Things. And then Stranger Things really reinvigorated my belief in being able to tell a story that I really believed in. So it sort of reawakened my love for those mediums. And so now I would be hard pressed to really choose what I love the most, because I'm really kind of, as a result of Stranger Things, getting into film and TV more and thinking like, wow, we can really tell stories that are so broad based and that touch so many people. And that's, in theater, you're only going to touch, however many people come to the shows, and it can be very expensive and exclusive in a certain way. And the great thing about Netflix is if you got, $10 a month, you can watch whatever. And, so I love the fact that it's more broad based and that you can reach a whole group of people that I don't get to reach in the theater. So yeah, I'm kind of reinvigorated, and I think I'm going to be doing more film and TV now, but hopefully I'll get back into a play too. I love them all.